Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 17th November 2020. In this video, we'll be discussing a couple of issues. One, with respect to the urban development policy and how to integrate technology with it. And second one is with the prospects of RCEP for India and why India should not miss this RCEP deal. The first article taken from the Hindu is titled Needed a Policy Framework in Step with Technology. So this is a article which talks about how we have to work as a system, as in we have to stop working in silos and ensure that we integrate the usage of technology to create what we call as smart cities for sustainable development. So let us have a look at this. So, if we have to talk about the larger theme of this article, it is basically about how the role of technology is increasing in urban planning. Basically, when we talk about urban planning, it is nothing but development of open land and existing areas of the city. To develop this land, urban planners utilize goal settings, they collect certain data, they must go through certain analysis, forecasting, and various consultancies are taken into account and their opinions are valued. This is the trend across the globe. However, in India, the major problem is urban planning is totally unplanned. It is very haphazard, and because of this reason, the recent phenomenon of urban floods is a manifestation of this unplanned way of development. When we talk about cities, they are often referred to as engines of growth. Yes, traditionally, Indian cities have always been the engines of growth, but the model of development of Indian cities is quite different from that of the Western cities. Say, for example, take the case of London. London has always been an industrial city that has eventually transformed into a megapolis wherein different communities coexisted together and also service industry flourished. But compare that with, say, our port cities like Mumbai or Kolkata, etc. During the times of British, these cities were major port areas. There was not much industrial activity. These cities came into existence just to export the final products that were produced in our country, or at least to import the final produce of the foreign products like British products into our markets. So, in this context, we have to understand that without peripheral development for a long period of time, these cities have always relied upon those models of development which cater to the needs of ports and export infrastructure, or even the industries that were surrounding Mumbai or Kolkata were mostly logistics industries, and depending upon the local agricultural produce, say for example in the case of Maharashtra, cotton was growing well, so certain mills of cotton were established, and in the case of Kolkata, in the state of West Bengal, jute mills were very famous. So the industries which depend on jute and cotton flourished around this, but major industrial development has not occurred in Indian cities. It is in this context we have an opportunity as well as challenge in urban planning, because cities are transforming into larger regions, and with the present emphasis on Atmanirbhar Bharat, the emphasis is on industrialization. Because if we take a look at the contribution of different sectors of economy to the GDP, we have around 17 to 18% through agricultural sector, which is the primary sector, and industrial sector is again subpar, where we are trying to achieve 25% of the contribution of GDP to of manufacturing sector to the GDP. Similarly, most of the income right now is coming from service sector, which is witnessing a transition because of industry 4.0 or industrial revolution 4.0. A lot of automation is happening, which is eventually forcing even the manufacturing sector to change its mechanism. So in this set of things, and with the latest pandemic, and after witnessing how migrants have left the city, we have realized the importance of the urban rural connect, and technology can play a huge factor in ensuring this inclusive growth, where a set of migrants who come from villages are not seen as outsiders but as a part of the development of this idea of urban areas. Now, how can technologies be deployed in the urban design process? If you take a look at our history, technology has already proven to assist urban planning processes across the western cities. So, on the peripheral of the existing cities, say in the example of London or even Scandinavian cities, on the periphery, the development is assisted by technological processes like cloud technology, internet, or Internet of Things. And this is more so in public spaces like, say, for example, transportation or traffic management. We have automated signal systems in a lot of western cities. The major problem right now when we're talking about urban design is most of the local bodies are not empowered to carry out the tasks that are entrusted with them. Say, for example, take a municipality. In that municipality, the water department or the water supply department is not coordinating with the roads and buildings department. So water pipelines should be laid after digging the roads. Now they should coordinate with the R&B department, and if that doesn't happen, say for example, if today the department gets a permission from the government to dig a particular road and lay a pipeline, and just a few days before that R&B department has actually laid down the road. So the lack of coordination often is because of a mechanism or a platform that can serve as a common communication platform. The absence of this platform can be actually solved by using ICT. It is not a big deal in a country that boasts of so many software professionals, but that attitude has been lacking. So we have had various technological developments in recent times, and if you're talking about industrial development and industrial corridors in cities and around cities, what is required right now is this integration of various governmental activities, and this can be strengthened by technology. So planning intelligent communities is nothing but using technology to implement self management practices and build smarter cities. Smart cities does not mean that they are just made of high technology where we are creating certain islands of development amongst a sea of poverty. So a lot of cities, say for example, take the case of Bangalore or take the case of Noida or Hyderabad or Chennai. There are certain areas where the software professionals and the multinational companies have created an ecosystem which is considered to be ultra uber urban or cool, or that part of the city which is completely different from the kind of development the other part or the older part of the city has seen. The same phenomenon has been occurring across the cities in India. So what is important right now is to retrofit the existing infrastructure in such a way that the lives of the people who are already residing in those areas are seeing a sort of a value addition to their existing quality of life. So the aggregate view that is needed in this context is, we are not talking and discussing about particular examples as to how we have to use IoT, artificial intelligence, etc. That is not the scope of this particular article. That can form a different article altogether. So the main thing that we have to talk about is the cross disciplinary learning, or between departments there should be integration, there should be discussion, deliberation as to how they should come up with a policy that will address all the needs of the society simultaneously in cities. So this is a larger issue which requires a shift from the normal rhetoric of development, which creates these islands of development amongst a sea of lack of prosperity. So whenever we are trying to create this industrial corridors or service sector corridors, we have to ensure that we, of course, we have to create these sectors of development in these areas which do not have the fruits of this development yet, and thereby link these corridors with the older part of the city. So this urban rural continuum will also help you. Say for example, this is a rural area, this is a city, and this is the core part of the city. So development must happen in these areas using the technologies in such a way that they connect the rural areas with the city, and also retrofit the existing city with the newer city. So that should be the kind of development, and the evolving policy framework is very important in this situation. For this, the center and state must cooperate, and cooperative federalism is the only way forward. That is what this article is trying to say. Basically, we are trying to create a systems thinking wherein the departments of the center, the state, and the local governments work together and not in silos. The second article for the day is titled Seize the Deal, and this is regarding RCEP. We have discussed what RCEP is in yesterday's video, so I'm not going to elaborate on that. The only point that we have to take here is the reason why we did not join RCEP is not because someone else is exploiting us. The reason why we are not able to utilize the free trade agreement is because we don't have the kind of infrastructure that is required to cater or use this FTA. So ASEAN is a very huge market, yet there is a significant amount of trade deficit with ASEAN countries. Similarly, if we take the case of RCEP, this has a whopping 30% of GDP uh, amongst those countries. So if we are actually missing such a huge market because China is going to overthrow us, and because of the lack of capacity within our own country, there is a fear that Chinese products will be dumped through this RCP deal. And also there is a fear that the New Zealand dairy market will actually affect us. All these arguments are a reality, definitely, but what we must do is we have to strive. We cannot escape this reality. If we are not developing capacities, eventually what will happen is the countries within which RCP deal has happened will continue to develop their capacities, and will obviously make free trade agreements with the rest of the world as well. And in that way we'll be missing a huge opportunity, because we are actually catering to a market which constitutes nearly 2.2 billion people, and if we are missing out on that opportunity, we might not be able to utilize that in the future. So in tandem with our Atmanirbhar Bharat, whatever produce that we make in future should be in alignment with the market requirements. So how will we capture these markets? If we have high tariffs, how will we improve our export competitiveness? So the questions are very tough to answer unless and until the government works with the states where actual activity happens. Eventually we will be losing out on those markets. So 1991 reforms were a good example to show India that if we lower tariffs and open our economy, our GDP will grow. So India must not make this mistake of completely ignoring this deal. What we have to do is we have to keep on improving our capacities in tandem with the vision laid down by the Atmanirbhar Bharat or self-reliance, and then also open channels for negotiation. We should negotiate harder, so that India is a country of nearly 1.4 billion people. No country would want to miss such a huge market. So they will obviously concede to certain demands somewhere down the line if they find certain middle ground between what India demands and what they offer. So these negotiations must not stop according to the view of this author. That is the gist of this article.